How about we talk a little football to get through the dog days of summer? Garen Emig and Bill Haisten, two columnists for the Tulsa World, joining you. And Bill, you wrote something terrific on Sunday. It's perfect June fare for readers and football fans who just need to get through the next about 6 weeks before they gear themselves back up. A sort of a look back. It was a look back on the first 25 years of the Big 12 Conference specific to football, and just a fascinating list of players, top players from the era, as well as a recognition of Heisman Trophy winners and conference champions, and just sort of a reflection. I'll just open the floor to you, your thoughts on the project and what kind of feedback you've gotten from your list of the 25 top players from the era.
Well, that's just it. I knew there would be reaction. And at first it was going to be a much longer list of players. And I thought, you know what? Let's shorten it to the best 12 from the Big 12. Let's make it as special as possible. It's my opinion. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm right. But, you know, I wanted to be fair to the guys from the 90s. I didn't want to, you know, just pile it up with a bunch of recent guys.
Yeah.
Furthermore, I mean, if you look at the recent history of drafted defensive players from the Big 12, it's a pretty short list, right? So obviously the better defensive guys came from the 90s and from the 2000s. So
right.
Like, no, you nailed it. I mean, I just thought, well, what do readers want right now, especially now that we've gotten to the end of the line with all these great events with golf and the OU softball and all
right.
that. Anyway, that's what compelled me to do it. And but no, it was fun. It was fun. I had a thought Saturday, and I thought, crap, I was in the room when they finalized all this. That was kind of a holy moment. That was a fun day. It was. And, but Dave Sittler and Dave was with the Oklahoman at the time, and Dave Sittler and I were all over that, and other world people as well. And
sure.
So I have a pretty vivid memory of the Big 12 coming together in its infancy. And I wrote it, and I believed it at the time. I thought this league would stay together forever, Garen. I thought it was the perfect conference. Geographically, it all just kind of ran down I-35. We had, you know, a great history and knowledge of every program in there. And then so it makes me sad now to see what it looks like today. But no, it was fun. It was fun to go back and I don't know. I probably had a list before I got down to 12 players. I probably had a list of 35. And pared down to 12. And there were some tough decisions, especially wide receiver, because holy cow. I mean, how do you leave Ryan Broyles off that list? That was hard. In fact, Ryan Broyles was on the list. And I kept going back to Crabtree, Michael Crabtree of Texas Tech, Garen, and remembering what the OSU coaches were saying to me at the time about Michael Crabtree. And then you go back and look at his numbers. Granted, he was a system guy, just like Graham Harrell was a system guy, right? Well, they're all system guys to some extent. But anyway, yeah, I've probably gotten more feedback on the wide receiver position than any other. Ryan Broyles, just his numbers were just mind blowing. And then Des Bryant, a lot of people have reached out to say, you missed the mark on this one. Des Bryant's a lot better player. I would say he's a more complete player for sure, because he was a really good punt return specialist, and had the greatest throwing arm of any non-quarterback I've ever seen. That was a treat watching him at the end of practice compete against Brandon Weeden in throwing making trick throws and stuff. So anyway, but no, it was a fun project. But the 12 players, I knew I couldn't make everybody happy. I knew I wouldn't make hardly anybody happy. And, you know, it broke my heart to have to leave Jason White off of it, because I'm a big fan of Jason's. It was, you know, and you think back to Sam Bradford's pro day, which was still to this day considered the greatest pro day ever. How do you leave him off? Well, you didn't want to just load it up with 9 quarterbacks out of 12 guys.
Right.
So, And then I forgot about the greatness of Grant Wistrom. I was
Yeah.
reminded of that, and really reminded of the greatness of Roy Williams at Oklahoma, the OU Roy Williams.
I thought what you did, and correction, as I said at the top, it was 25, it was 12, which made your job harder. If it had been 25, you might have had some leeway to include some of the names that you did. But I thought it was terrific that you did recall Wistrom and Von Miller from an era that it's convenient for us to forget, right? When Nebraska and A&M, we sort of displaced the expatriates, right, from the conference, which I think Bob Bowlesby would be okay with. I think they're still a little bitter about that. Right. But you can't ignore things that have happened. Certainly can't ignore conference history. And you including Wistrom and Miller is a nod to the history, not as it stands currently, but as it's been for 25 years. And I thought that was really well done. I know you're getting some pushback probably on both names. There's probably any name that you included on the list, but I thought that was right on.
The guy I have to say who wasn't even on my mind in the beginning, but got that way because I happened to glance at his body of work, because I just kind of dwell on the one game against OU when Darren Sproles cut OU to pieces in the championship game. But then you go back and look at his body of work over, 3 seasons plus a little bit as a freshman, and I was blown away. And to be honest, I don't know if I've ever been aware that he was that productive over 3 full seasons. But
sure,
this kid who had an amazing NFL career as well, undersized guy, kind of a Quentin Griffin type, maybe with more straight line speed. Okay, Garrett, he ran as a sophomore, 1,465 yards, as a junior, 1986, as a senior, 1,318. That's unbelievable productivity. And the guy never missed a game at his size. So I just thought Darren Sproles, and I wanted to kind of, it's like K-State in a sense was their, what they achieved first 25 was kind of modest because OU so overwhelmingly dominated the conference since 2000. But what Bill Snyder did was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And I kept thinking, man, I could write a whole separate just on the fact that, the 3+ seasons before Snyder took it over, Garen, K-State was 340-1. He takes them over, and 10 years later, they're 11-0. They're number 2 in the country. And if they don't blow a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter in the Big 12 game, they beat A&M and they play in the BCS game.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that Bill Snyder was represented or remembered in as much as I could with limited space or whatever.
Sure.
But it was fun to look back at it all. The only Oklahoma State player I have on the list was Russell Okung, who was a 4-year starter at left tackle, who started 47 consecutive games, who was the 6th player taken overall. I haven't had anybody push back against him, but I have heard a lot of people. And Blackman has gotten some, with regard to the email reaction to this, a lot of people have mentioned Blackman too, who had unbelievable numbers. Dez was a bit more complete player, certainly, but I just remember what the coaches would tell me about Michael Crabtree, and just that he was really a handful, and he was a great player, no doubt.
You almost need anytime any journalist, talk show host, columnist, whatever, blogger, anytime they go back and do a best of the Big 12 list with regard to individual excellence, it is almost impossible just because of the sheer volume, and you touched on this already, but of offense that's been played in this league and specific to the positions of quarterback and wide receiver. And again, it speaks to how good you have a quarterback at the top of your list. And I don't think anyone disputes Vince Young. I would hope not. I would hope you're not getting any pushback on Vince Young being number 1.
No, I haven't.
No, but it speaks to the dominance and excellence of the next 3 players next 4 players, because they're either running backs or defensive linemen, not linebackers. Guys make all the tackles, but linemen, Wistrom, who we've talked about, and Ndamukong Suh of Nebraska, who was at 2. You had Grant Wistrom 5, and then you have the running backs, Adrian Peterson and Ricky Williams, 3 and 4. So just before you get back into quarterbacks and receivers a little bit later in your list, how about the dominance, excellence, whatever you want to call it, of guys in the 2 through 5 spots?
Well, I mean, Sue was, I don't know. He was kind of a pro football guy playing college football. He was a dirty player. No, there's no doubt. He was a dirty player, but I don't remember him getting a lot of flags. Now he'd get a few, but he wasn't hurting his team with stuff. But I think by the end of every game the guy ever played, the guy across from him never wanted to see him again, ever. And he was an unblockable force of nature. He was a truly great college football player. He was like if Leroy Selman hadn't been such a sweet guy, if you put Sue's personality in Leroy Selman, it'd be the same guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he was on that level. He was on the Leroy Selman level and he was a giant who just, if you watch I watched a little bit of his highlight stuff when I was doing this, and man, he could go. It wasn't just that he could bull rush his way upfield. Holy cow, Garen, he could cover ground laterally like nobody else at his size. So he was an easy number 2. In fact, he was 1 and 2 were really easy for me. I kind of knew going in those would be 1 and 2.
Right.
Adrian Peterson, anybody who saw the man play live, anybody who was at Boone Pickens Stadium when Adrian was a freshman and he ran for 235 or whatever it was, and the spin move touchdown, and you know, that was kind of the first statement game. Although he had a big game against Texas that year too, but to me that was his first true statement that I'm not just a really good back, I'm like an all-timer here. And so look out. And he was undeniable. And you know, it breaks my heart that he busted his collarbone and didn't get that full 3rd season, because you'd like to know what it would have looked like. And maybe you don't have that Boise State nonsense. Probably not in that game. I don't know, maybe. Ricky Williams, you know, it's crazy how similar the scenarios were 20 years apart. Earl Campbell was a junior going into his senior year. At the time, Fred Akers gets the Texas job. And then so Fred Akers junks the wishbone and says, we're going to line up in the eye, we're going to hand the ball or toss the ball to Earl all day long. And basically it's like with John Mackovic, I'm not sure Texas really knew what to do with Ricky Williams. And then Mac Brown gets there, first year, Ricky Williams senior year, and says, we're going to give the ball to Ricky every play. And they did. And he, you know, he sets the all-time rushing record for career yardage. And so he was an unbelievable college player. He had a kind of a flaky, you know, unusual pro career, and got caught up in weed when weed was really taboo. And but still a great college player. Grant Wistrom, I had forgotten this, but you know, I mean, he was in the middle of the defense for 3 national championship teams. Now 2 of those were in the Big 8, but 97 obviously was a Big 12 season for Nebraska. But you know, they were 49-2 with Wistrom in the middle. Now, Tommy Frazier was pretty good, and if Tommy Frazier had been a Big 12 guy,
that's right.
How do you keep him off of this list? But yeah, Wistrom was, and I looked at a little bit of video of him too, and I was like, yeah, of course he was a great player, and he's got to be on here. Okung at 7. I apologize, not at all for that. I think he was the best OSU player Gundy's had, in my mind. Von Miller, he was just, you know, and the way they used him was pretty clever. He kind of depended, and not really necessarily on the down and distance. They just kind of surprised opponents with lining him up at the end of the line, or he would drop into coverage. He was just an amazing player. Roy Williams. It's like I wrote, you know, it's not very often that a safety can be regarded as maybe the best player in the country. And and I don't mean just the best defensive player. He was sensational. And then he made, you always wanted to see a guy have a signature play. Obviously the Superman play in the Cotton Bowl when he knocks the ball out of Chris Sims' hands, Lehman gets the touchdown, ball game. Roy Williams was a great player, not just a big hitter, but a great player. The one guy I wavered on more than any other, Garen, was Patrick Mahomes. And he didn't have a whole lot of support around him,
right?
On really average teams. But I did have the opportunity to see him play, I think 3 times or at least twice. And I was at the crazy game in Lubbock, Mayfield versus Mahomes, unforgettable game. And so with regard to, you just think, okay, if I put Mahomes on any other roster in any other year, and I don't mean any other Tech roster, I mean any roster in the Big 12, any program, he would have been amazing. He was not a system guy. He was not a classic Leach / Texas
Right.
kind of. No, he was a truly unbelievably talented. And like I wrote, best arm talent in the history of the league. And I'm not so sure Whedon wasn't number 2 with regard to arm talent after that. Although Kyler Murray, holy cow, he was a hard guy to leave off this list, I got to say. Kyler
It's incredible. Yeah.
1-year starter, if not for that year.
That's just it, right? It's good, as great as he was that 1 year, something to be said for multi-year excellence. Would have, if there'd been a 13, Bill, would Jason White have been 13? That's kind of who I was in the back of my head at that. Yeah. I bet it was hard for Bill to leave White off.
Yeah, no, it was, because for him to come back from 2 ACLs,
right,
and then for him to have confessed years later that he actually went into Bob Stoops' office before the spring of 2003 and tried to quit. He tried to quit football.
Yeah.
And Bob, I don't know how Bob's bedside manner was, but Bob, whether it was gentle, nudging him back out to practice, or if he just said BS, go get your reps, I don't know. But Bob persuaded him to stay. He wins the Heisman, has an unbelievable season. But no, and he did it for 2 years. I mean, and statistically, in some regards, was better in 2004. And he gets a lot of times you'll see these trash lists of the most undeserving Heisman winners, and he's always on it, and it's so unfair. It makes me sick. So yeah, it was hard. It was hard to leave. I would like to have put him on this list.
Yeah. Real quick, do you think part of, if you're getting pushback from the crowd in Stillwater, is part of it because of how could you put an offensive lineman on a top 12 list and not a skill guy who racked up a bunch of stats? Is that I have no quarrel with O'Connell. I'm with you, but you think that invites some of the blowback?
Well, I don't know that he would have been on this list had I not been on the beat all those years. I was there the day he arrived as a freshman. I was there the day he finished as a senior. I saw him in practice every day, back when we could go to practice every day. And I just know that, it's Mike Gundy always preaches that it's not typically until a guy's 3rd year, Garen, that he's ready to really contribute on the offensive line. And here he is coming in there as a freshman, a true freshman out of Houston. Who was fairly heavily recruited, but wasn't, you would think that a guy who would be destined to be the 6th pick overall was recruited by everybody. Well, he really wasn't. And he went to a prominent high school in Houston. But it was massively obvious from the first day. I mean, they're still in shorts and they're not even hitting yet. And you just see this unbelievably, I'll say this too, he's the most perfectly proportioned big man I've ever seen on a football field. And by that, I mean, a lot of these guys are really top heavy. They work so hard on their upper body, and maybe they have really average legs. Russell was a flexible, giant, fluid athlete who could really run. And Blackman, a healthy Tylan Wallace, certainly James Washington, Dez. They've had a bunch of really good targets over there. And
Yeah.
you know, a guy, one of my personal favorites too from those years was Kendall Hunter. He was a great player. Kendall Hunter was Darren Sproles. He was OSU's Darren Sproles as well.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, good grief, we could Zoom for 2 hours or 2 days even on the guys who could have been on the list. But yeah, the guys who were really hard to keep off of it, Jason White, for sure, Jason, and you know, Ryan Broyles, I gotta say. I bet I tapped in his name and deleted it 4 times. I mean, because his numbers were just so off the chart. And so there's another guy you just made you sick when he got hurt. But yeah, it was a fun look back.
Right.
You know, I can't believe I have such a vivid memory of those days in Kansas City and thinking I've spent my whole life for the most part, except for a couple of years in New Orleans, you know, in the exact footprint of the Big 12. And I'm so excited to have these teams come together. And OU Texas was a conference game, although it's lost a little bit of its mystique, I got to say. And I just remember thinking, man, this is the perfect conference. It's perfect. Geographically, it made all the sense in the world. And you know, and I do remember thinking too, I just wonder if anybody can ever kind of challenge Nebraska. They were so unbelievable at the time. I mean, they just weren't losing ever. And then to look at the landscape of everything today in Nebraska, what it looks like today, and then OU, what it's done. I do think the most important game played probably was OU Nebraska in 2000, because I believe it would kind of signaled the beginning of the end of the Nebraska dynasty, and it signaled the beginning of the Bob Stoops run. Although they had beaten Texas and K-State, I remember all that, the Red October, but to beat #1 ranked Nebraska in the way they beat them. And even though Nebraska a year later played in the BCS championship game, they weren't the same.
Yeah.
They got blown out in the regular season finale in 2001 by Colorado. They got smoked by Miami in the championship game. And they've never really recovered. They've never been what they were before since OU beat them that day at 0-50.
Yeah.
Unforgettable. And then you know, the final game in Manhattan for Venables, Mike Stoops, Mark Mangini. It wasn't the final game. It was the Big 12 champion, the final season. If they beat A&M that day, man, they're going to play Tennessee for the national championship. I just can't emphasize enough how unbelievable it is that K-State was that close.
Yep.
To playing for it. And in my mind, they were the best team in the country that year. They were. Now they got their hearts broken in that game and didn't even show up for the Alamo Bowl, and they got beat by Purdue. But no, that K-State team was not only, if I were to do a list of the best 5, 6, 8 teams that there's ever been in the Big 12, 98 K-State would probably be on that list somewhere. So no, it was fun. You know, 1 month exactly from Wednesday. We're recording this on Monday. 1 month from Wednesday is Big 12 media.
Yeah.
How close we are. So, but I was trying to think, what do the readers want right now? And I'm thinking, well, what do I want? Well, I want to talk about, read about, and get back into, after, you know, several weeks of a lot of golf and a lot of other stuff. I mean, I've been all over the place lately, and so have you. But it's time to, you know, it's time to roll up our sleeves and football. And I just thought that was
there it is. A gift.
No, I was happy with it. I mean,
a gift to the readers. Let's get his picture in there.
No, I was happy with it. I was, and our editor, Joe Kress, that night put it all together in a good way. I was happy with that. So, you know, we got, we're just a matter of days until we get into 2021 football. And
I know.
that was a little something to kill the time until we get there.
Well, this will be a fun time kill, my man. This was good stuff. Should keep folks occupied for at least the rest of this week, if not until Big 12 Media Days, when we have current events to dive back into. Good work, man. It was good to visit with you about it. We will we'll visit again soon. All right.
Let me see if I'm oh, you and I both just got a text. I thought it was maybe another. How could you leave Des Bryant off?
I thought it was someone from Columbia, Missouri saying, "Where's Jeremy Macklin?"
I know. There's several Mizzou guys that, you know, not every school's represented on that top 12. I mean, Baylor's not, and Iowa State's not, and you know,
Yeah.
Robert Griffin won the Heisman, and he didn't even really. You know what? I'll say this real quick, and then we'll get out of here. This is another example of me having been on the OSU beat for as long as I was, because I saw Robert Griffin play live 3 times. 3 times. And OSU beat Baylor 3 times by a combined total of 90 points or 93 points. So I just like, can I put that quarterback on this list? Nope. No, and it's no disrespect to Baylor or Griffin, but I mean, we're talking about the 12 best here. And so if that's my memory of Robert Griffin, was getting clobbered by OSU 3 times, and he's probably not going to be on my list. But yeah, it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah. All right. Get some rest. We'll talk to you soon.
See you soon. Thank you, Garen.